Thank you for joining me on the Recruitment podcast. I'm your host, Lilia Holmes, and this week it's a bit of a first actually. I've got an in-person guest. If you go back and watch this on Spotify on video, choose video option, or you go to our YouTube channel, you will see I'm actually in person with my next guest, who is actually doing her first ever podcast and might need no introduction if you follow us over on LinkedIn. This is Lilia Holmes. Welcome, Lilia.
Hello, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So I think it's really important that I have a diversity in our guests. Of course, this is for me, I prefer to listen to podcasts where you've got a diversity, where you've got different stories, people chatting about their experiences. And if you look back over the previous 5 seasons, I have often brought people in who maybe aren't even in recruitment, who can share tips and advice, which I think benefit all recruiters and leaders that choose to come and listen week in, week out. And I've invited Lilia on for lots of reasons, but the main reason being is that having recently joined the recruitment industry in 2024, I thought there's so many people that send me messages who, like Lilia, have joined the recruitment industry in recent years. And I thought it'd be nice to hear from somebody who is not only relatively new to the recruitment industry, but is actually recruiting recruiters. But I'm going to let Lilia introduce herself to you. So Lilia, give our audience an introduction as to who you are and what you do.
So I recently joined Key. I joined in end of July 2024. So I've only been in 3 months in recruitment industry. I did roughly do a bit of social media work in previous years, but it wasn't anything like this. I'm finding it very interesting at the moment. I'm learning the whole process of being a Rec2Rec. But then I also have a second job on the side, which I do dance teaching. So I'm trying to find the balance of the two at the moment, as it's a bit of a crazy world to be a teacher and a Rec2Rec.
It's like the ultimate, isn't it? We are actually going to come back to Lilia's second job because I think that's really important for those listening who are thinking about employing, the emerging talent coming through. I don't want to call them Gen Z, we'll just say emerging talent, that very often there's a financial need to have a second job, but it's also important from a balance point of view that like Lilia's alluded to. So yeah, Lilia's joined Keep Recruitment in July 2024, and as we record this now, that she's just completed 3 months in. And I think it's really nice for those listening, even if you're listening now as a leader and you've got 20, 30 years experience, I do think we can learn a lot from people who are coming into the industry now. So Lilia, you're obviously recruiting recruiters, you're resourcing for myself and Shannon and Laura. Just give us an overview of what your experience has been like so far in terms of the people that you've been speaking to, whether it's candidates or clients. Give us a broad sort of overview.
So I'd say at the moment, my favourite thing to do is meeting clients, as we only go into Manchester one day a week, mostly. If not, it's every 2 weeks. But those days are always full packed with clients and even some processed candidates as well. And you learn so much from them. So anyone that is starting out in the recruitment industry, it's better to get out there than I didn't obviously encourage to get on the phone, but I'd actually say face to face is more beneficial.
Why do you think that is? What do you get from it when you're sat with, because you've been sat with boards, like literally a panel of people, and you've just been dead calm and it's not overwhelmed you in any way. So why do you think you get more from that?
Well, I find even with clients that I've called and seen face to face, I do find them a bit different on the phone. I feel like everyone has a different persona online than in person, which isn't even recruitment related. I just mean full stop, everyone.
As in, you think people are friendlier in person than they are on the phone?
Not necessarily. They just have a persona that they put, like a build a wall in front of them on a phone.
I think that's probably quite true. How many of you listening now probably have a bit of a telephone voice, or probably put on a bit of a, I'm busy, I haven't got time for this. And that's actually probably what your end user client is feeling as well. They've got so much to do. We all seem so much busier than we ever used to be. And what Lily is saying is that when you book a face-to-face meeting, you are capturing that person, whether it's half an hour, it's an allowed time. Everyone knows what the expectation of that time is. And so actually it's much more relaxed almost.
Yeah. Yeah, I find when you call somebody, you can tell they're kind of putting a voice on. Or maybe it might not be a voice, they might just have less energy than they do in person, or other way around, they're really energetic, and then you meet them in person, they're actually quite laid back and relaxed.
And I also think that when you're on the phone, and I know I'm guilty of this, most people have, some kind of AirPods in or headset. you're often distracted doing something else. Whereas I think when you're in person, you have to give everything. You can't be sat there on your phone. You can't be sat there on your laptop doing a second task, multitasking.
That's also why I think Zoom's good, because Zoom is like a face-to-face on a phone call. So it's not like you can be on your phone while on a Zoom. So when you book interviews, don't book a phone call, book a Zoom.
And Zoom is brilliant for Zoom info. Zoom is brilliant for the AI summary. We use the AI summary now, and we then send that over to clients. We send it to candidates because it's in capturing and it's so effective. But also for us, it means we can still take notes during the meeting, but it means then we've got something to refer back to, especially if it's a complicated brief or if their sector's particularly specific. And how have you found it? I mean, you know, most people are probably finding us over on LinkedIn. You dabbled with LinkedIn when you've done the social media for us when you were interning a couple of years ago, but how has your experience been of building a community and getting to know people on LinkedIn?
Well, it was a lot different, like you said, when I did it back in a few years ago, because all I did was repost your posts, Key's posts. I didn't actually post myself, and reposts don't really will drag algorithm up. So no, I found it quite good. I've built, I think, 2,000 more connections since I started, which obviously is quite impressive.
It's brilliant.
And I obviously get most of my candidates off LinkedIn now, as I've not really started to get referrals, and that's how we at Key get them, referrals or mainly LinkedIn, and I'm roughly off LinkedIn at the moment. But I am enjoying it. LinkedIn is fun.
And what's been the accidental success is that you've actually won us some new clients.
Yeah. I don't know how that happened really. When I do my 20 ads a day, 100 a week, I do add a few directors here and there, and it's just lucky that they actually are interested to speak to me. So
yeah, it's been great. So what would your advice be to someone listening now, that one person who's maybe in their first recruitment job that's a little bit wary of either getting out and meeting clients or getting on the phone or onto Zoom, like you say, or Teams? And then the second bit of the question is using LinkedIn to promote themselves.
Well, I was not necessarily scared to go out and meet people, but you always have a bit of a feeling like, oh, like, will they like me? But I literally jump in the deep end, especially with phone calls. I literally chucked myself in because obviously I was scared that I'll say the wrong thing, they might not like me, they might hang up on me. And that is the worst thing that can happen. They'll just never speak to you again. And what's the worst that can happen?
And that's not happened yet, has it? I always joke and say that I'm just about to celebrate 26 years, and in 26 years I've had one client tell me to fuck off. And he was very rude, and I didn't even want to speak to him again. So I was quite happy that he told me to fuck off. So the reality is that is the worst case scenario. But it just, what would you do? Like, you just wouldn't speak to them again, would you? I don't know how much you're happy to share about your journey to coming to work for Key Recruitment, but what we can talk about is your hospitality and retail experience. So do you want to give us a little potted history of Lilia Holmes' life up until the point you joined Key in July 2024?
As in first job?
Yeah.
First job, oh gosh. I think it was a babysitting job or a tea time job. I've been working since probably 13 years old. In and out, tea time, babysitting. Obviously, that's not probably the best career to choose.
Good way to earn easy money, though.
Yeah, so that was a good little side job after school. Then I think I went into an apprentice recruitment office for a few months, and then I left that, did my GCSEs, and then I went into actually I went into the hospitality job before my GCSEs and did that during. So it was a little pink cafe in Ramsbottom. I don't know if you'll know, it's called Hearts for Homes. Very pink flowers everywhere. Loved it. Obviously, by the end of working there, it's very pink. I was a bit overwhelmed. But yeah, I joined there when I was 15. So normally people say it's quite hard to find a job before you're 16 years old. That is not true. Get out there, get on Facebook, message people, even for a babysitting job. So I was making coffees, clearing tables. I was basically doing the whole thing. So normally in a restaurant, you'll have people that do each job. I was literally doing every single job in that cafe. So it's a very good experience, I'd say. You've got to be very strong-minded for a hospitality job. Otherwise, I just think if you've not got a strong mind for it, you will get destroyed by customers.
In what way? So that's because I think that relates directly to recruitment.
I think it's just people in general. You'll get some rude customers and you'll get some lovely ones, because we had regular customers that came in and you'd be like really excited to see them. You know, they'll give you a nice tip every now and then. But then you get some people that you've never seen them before. They'll come in and treat you like you're a nobody. So it's one of them in hospitality. It's a good job to do because it really builds your strength as a person. But if you're not strong-minded and you know that, I would not recommend it.
You also used to spend Sundays working in to the business owner that ran the cafe also does run a shop, a gift shop, which was, you know, what other skills did that give you? Because I want to make sure retail's included here in this part of the conversation.
Well, I'd say it's a lot different to the cafe. Even everyone that works there said it, because you've got so much time to engage with a customer. Then when you're in a cafe and it's a massive rush, you've got no time to chit chat, have a nice talk to them at the till. But at a small gift shop in Ramsbottom, you've got like an hour to talk to them, because you've not got a queue behind of people. It's one every hour mainly. But retail, I'd recommend more, because you can engage with people, talk to people, get to know people. And it also very good with numbers. If it's not priced, you've got to guess the price of the product and hope your boss doesn't kill you.
Oh, that's funny. So we know that there's a talent skill shortage in recruitment, and ultimately our job as Rec2Rec's day to day is to, I don't want to use the word barrier because I find that a very negative word, but we should be the conduit to attracting the right sort of people to our industry. And those that are listening who are leaders, and I get lots of messages from leaders asking to come on the pod and just thanking me for the guests that we've had. We know that there's been a traditional mindset that you should take people on who are graduates. I'm not a graduate. You should take people on who've got business to business experience. So, you know, selling a product or a service to another business, which I did do. And people that have potentially come from, you know, I guess the industry, so maybe have worked in the legal sector, have worked in property. But I think as it becomes a much more, and we could talk about how recruitment isn't just a sales job. What advice would you give to that leader listening about interviewing and hiring a potential trainee recruiter who has come from hospitality and retail?
Well, I find that funny, the first point about graduate, because I left school in year 10. And it doesn't mean I'm any less clever than a graduate. It just means education wasn't for me per se. Hospitality, you have to answer the phone. It's not, oh, I can't answer this phone call, I'm too scared. You have to answer it because it's potential room hire. They might want to book out the room for a baby shower. They might be asking allergies. They might want to come in and book a table for the next 10 minutes, and you never know that you might not get another customer, so that's a lost £50 for the business. So I think when you're hiring someone, it shouldn't be the case of what qualifications have they got. Experience, I guess, depends on the sector. So if you think that someone with no experience would not understand the sector at all, that's when it kind of balances out. But for a trainee recruiter going into the first recruitment job, hospitality is probably the best experience they could have for it, because dealing with people you're talking to as a recruiter, you need to be very strong because they might not be nice to you. They might not answer the phone. They might answer the phone and tell you to do one and get off the line. So
it creates resilience.
Yeah.
But do you think resilience is naturally occurring, or do you think that's something that you can build up?
You can build it up, 100%. I definitely did. If you asked me 5 years ago that I would be the person I am today, I'd say absolutely not. And I think that's based off what happened in school when I left and joining a hospitality job.
Definitely. So now recruitment's a breeze, is it, Lil?
Not exactly.
Not exactly. No, I'm glad that you said that. I think that was really interesting, and I do just want to come back to. And I think this is really important, particularly we're recording this literally a couple of weeks after the first Labour budget, where they've increased tuition fees. And I don't know how many of you listening have got kids who are either at university or on that trajectory, that traditional trajectory to go to university. I think it's becoming less and less likely as we forecast for the next 5 years, even, let's not go beyond 5 years, that I think it's going to be totally out of people's financial reach to consider a degree, when I don't think it's necessary. I think it's much more important to have life skills and to go and get vocational experience, whether it isn't a cafe, a shop, it could be doing. One of my first jobs was doing telesales for my uncle's home security company, and I used to just literally telesales and go and knock on doors and give leaflets. So I think it's about what Lily is saying there right now, feel like having experienced it, but me as a leader, and I've been in the industry a quarter of a century, is that we need to unpick what someone's profile says and really think about what that person is and what they bring. That's my summary of what you've said. We said in your introduction that you've got a second job, so just tell us a little bit about that and how that's come about.
It didn't really come about. So I've been dancing since I was 2, so that's coming to 16 years, which is insane.
Where's my trophy for being a dance mum for all that time?
So
I'd say shout out.
2 years old, I did freestyle dancing, so that's you crazy running around the floor. I think I did that once competition wise because I ran the wrong way around the floor. I do remember that. I don't know how I remember that from so long ago. And then I went into ballroom and Latin, which is still one of my favourites, even though I do not do it anymore. It's always been a great style to learn, which I think anyone that has a child, get them into that, because first of all it gives them rhythm, so when they go out partying when they're older they have rhythm to dance. And now I do street dance. So street dance is where you'd see Beyonce's backing dancers doing some cool moves behind her, so that's street dance for you. So yeah, I really enjoy it. It builds you as a person as well. Instead of hospitality, this creates you as an actual person, confidence-wise and personality-wise. I guess it builds your whole...
Holistic?
Yeah, that's probably the word I was looking for. So yeah, I did that till I was... So actually, it was the same time I joined recruitment. So my dance teacher, Abby Lindsay, Abby Haywood now, she's married. She messaged me because I said I'd fallen out of love with the competition side, as in a team, because I started dancing with a few younger ones, and I could see they were still getting really happy that they've got a first place, and I'm just like, another one down the line, because I've had how many placements now. So she asked me to teach for them. So now I'm teaching the next generation, for a passion of a sport. I'm teaching them my skills.
Which is fantastic. And I think that there's 2 reasons why I wanted to discuss that today on the podcast, which I think is very relevant to those listening. The first is, I think it's really important to keep a hobby. And if that hobby, I've interviewed so many people over the years who've had to compromise on, coaching a football team, playing netball, going to the gym or whatever it is. And I personally think that we get the best out of people and they're more productive when they do something that they're really passionate about, whatever that is. That could be playing golf, it could be whatever. And I think you having that time twice a week is where you expend all that energy, you get all the endorphins back. I mean, on a side note, it is something separate from me, which I think is very healthy. We are going to come on to working with a relative.
Let me just add to that. Okay. Hobby-wise, I have left dance twice. So I left for gymnastics when I think I was about 9 years old, left for about a year. And then you realise you like to do it, you like dance, you miss dance, you don't actually like gymnastics anymore, then you go back to it. And then when you get a bit older, you think you don't like it anymore, so you leave again for a year, and then you realise you like it. So maybe that's like when people jump in and out of recruitment. And when we interview people, they're like, I'm not sure I want to do recruitment anymore. And then they'll move to a sales job or a marketing job. So they'll do the same sector they were doing to recruit people, but they're actually internal. They're actually doing it internally. And then they'll come back to you later saying, I actually miss recruitment. So I guess it's one of them.
I think that's a really good point, because I think we can be so against the nuances of human nature, which is that we don't always love everything all the time. And I hadn't even thought about making that point on this podcast, and I think that's one that will really, the penny's going to drop for a lot of people, because there is a statistic that the Recruiter magazine shared, which I think came from the REC or APSCO, it was one of the 2, and I'm sorry if I haven't remembered that correctly, but I know it's one of the 2, that 35% of recruitment consultants in the UK have left the industry during 2024. And I've had so many people message me and say that accurate, and I think it probably is, and I think it's for a lot of those people, it was definitely the right decision and they might come back. For a lot of people, it was maybe not their own decision and they've just had no choice but to go and do something separate, because the fact is the supply and demand model has gone a bit skew this year and last year as well. But I think you made a really valid point there. I think, like anything, you find yourself, discipline and consistency doing something that you love. Occasionally, you just fall out of love with it, and that's fine. It's okay. I'm really pleased you mentioned that. So I guess the second part of that is that, and I think it's something that you were alluding to today, and obviously we're recording this in advance, but Lily has recently shared a post around recruiters who are progressed and go up the leadership route. So they go from being a peer with their fellow consultants and they then become managing consultant, maybe principal, whatever you want to call it in your business, billing manager, because they want to go down that career path. And it's the perception then of the people that were once their peers that are now reporting into them, whether it's just from a mentorship, coaching point of view. How have you found that with some of the dancers? And I know we're just talking generically here, but what would your advice be to a recruiter listening who is about to take that trajectory to ensure that they are still respected by their peer group, but they make a success of their own leadership path?
I think you've just got to set expectations and goals and prove that you actually can teach them something that they don't already know. Because necessarily you were at the same level and now you may be one step higher and they think, well, we were at the same level 10 months ago. But you just need to set those expectations and actually be like, well, do you know this? Do you want me to help you get there? So I think it's one of them. People will always have in the back of their mind, well, we're the same level, so I can't learn anything off you. But realistically, I still learn from her when I think I know more than her.
This is going to be a very nice segue to working with a relative. We'll pause that for a second, but I learn from you. Yeah. I do learn from you, and and I've got to bring Shannon into this. Shannon is she will be celebrating 8 years at Key Recruitment in 2025. So she's, I think, got 9 years recruitment experience. And I have learned so much from her since she joined the business in 2017. And it's nothing to do with age. Yeah. To me, it's about you learn from everybody around you. And I think that's what having an open mindset means. It means you are always learning from other people around you. There's no fixed, you never know everything about anything. And you know something about something. But I think that what you know about certain things, I will never know. Yeah. And I think it's quid pro quo, which does segue very beautifully into, there will be people listening that either have, siblings, possibly their own children, or parents, or very often spouses and partners working alongside them. And before you started working at Key Recruitment with myself, I went and had some separate conversations with people that I knew were working with very specifically either their parent or their child to make sure that we would be set up for success. So what's it been like for you working with Lysha, mum? And what would your advice be to anyone listening who is maybe being, I was about to use the word groomed, that is definitely not the right word to use, but is being courted by a relative to go and work for them, maybe take over the business, whatever it might be?
Well, I definitely don't think it's the easiest thing, because I would be lying if I said it was smooth sailing. We did, when I first started, first thing we did, sat down boundaries for about 2 hours. Even I think we did a pretend interview to get my process in line, and I physically couldn't do that with her because I can't take her seriously most of the time. But boundaries being set there, she went, well, we're in work mode, so you've got to do it, because if you were anybody else or I wasn't your mum, I'm your boss, you would have to do that. So I think anyone working with your mum or your dad or your sister, you need to set those boundaries and obviously not call each other by that relative name, call them by Lysha, first name.
You've called me that for years, though. People have found that really weird. Yeah. I've got an older daughter who doesn't work at Key Recruitment, and she's just mimically called me Leash for years, hasn't she?
Yeah.
I think it's because their friends call me that. So as they've got older and become teenagers, I've just responded. And also, if you've got little kids, this is a really good life hack for those who've got maybe sort of 6, 7, 8 years, they're getting a bit more independent. When you go shopping, a kid says mum, every mum turns around, or dad, every dad turns around. But if they say your name, you're more likely to respond to it, and that's kind of where it came
I was
from.
about to say that.
Sorry.
Actually, if I was in Tesco, I'd just go Lysha, she'd turn around straight away. But if I went mum, she'd take about 10 seconds to realise I was
I'm like, it's not my kid.
So yeah, to summarise that, working with a relative isn't easy at all. You will have rocky moments, and obviously living in the same house, you do like with that second job, you need that break, even if you don't want a second job and that's too much for you, because it does get a lot when you're working 13, 14 hours a day. Go to the gym for an hour, go to see a friend, don't stay in the same house for the whole day and see each other for 24 hours a day, because that is not healthy for anybody. I can tell you that for a fact. Even with a friend that you sincerely love, it just won't.
Or a spouse, which is why I'm glad you were the one that brought that up. And I think the other point I want to make, everything that you said is absolutely correct and very honest and very transparent. It's about reassessing the boundaries. We've already reassessed the boundaries at least once, and that's just been in 3 months. So it's knowing, you kind of get to know each other, but I think it's not taking each other for granted. And I think it's also about, from what do you want from this? And I said right from the start that the most important thing was to protect our relationship. And she's not obliged. She's not obliged that if this isn't working for her. But equally, Lilia knows that if I think it's not working for Key, it won't be a personal thing. So I think it's a brave decision, and I've seen some incredible, and I've had on this podcast, as you know, if you're a regular listener, I've had people on who run businesses with their spouses, and I think that's quite challenging in itself, having worked with Lilia's dad right at the start before Lily was even a dot in my eye. I think that's really, really good advice. So before we finish, I want to get your crystal ball out, and I want you, having had all the meetings that you've had in the last 3 months, and I know you're not an AI expert, but I'd like to think that you've had such a sort of baptism of fire of what the recruitment industry, where we're positioned. What do you think 2025 will look like if you're a recruiter, first of all, and then what should leaders be thinking about? What does the next year look like, do you think?
I do think it's going to upscale a little bit, because 2024, obviously everybody knows in recruitment it's not been the easiest. We will have more recruiters leaving the industry, I think. That's just off everything, really. It's going to get tougher, but then it will end up rising. So I think that's for leaders and recruitment consultants.
What do you base that on?
I guess I base that off hard working. I guess we've found a lot of people that left the industry during COVID and think they can join back easily, when anyone that will be hiring will see that as a massive red flag, because they haven't pushed themselves through that hard time in recruitment. And you will, as you know, you've been in this industry for 26 years.
Yeah.
There's always hard times in recruitment, and obviously I know that because I've grown up with a Rec2Rec in the same household, and I hear her on the phone like,
giving away my secrets.
Yeah, I won't expose her, but there's always been tough times, and you've got to either push through that or it's not the right industry for you. So I think 2025, same thing as this year, push through it and hope for the best. That's all you can do.
And also, based on the fact that even in the last week alone, we've had about half a dozen clients, new clients, want us to support them with their hires. And I'm not going to call you Gen Z, because I hate all the Gen Z, Gen X thing. It's just, I think you are who you are. Where do you see companies that are maybe more traditional, that aren't utilising tech and AI? What you've understood?
I do think tech and AI is for the future. Even though necessarily me as a Gen Z, I don't use AI. I don't use even ChatGPT. She always tells me to get on it. I'm like, well, no, I don't really want to use it. Even though it probably would benefit me in some ways, I just feel like I can do that myself. But so many companies are fixated on the AI, what AI are you using? We ask our clients every interview now, what AI do you use in your process? Just because we're interested in if people are using it. But then you find most people are, so that's when it's when you've got an AI recruiter and then you've got maybe an education, like education, maybe robots will take over in 30 plus years. And then
Less time. I know.
yeah, and then
It'll be a robot sat
what
here in
will
about
it be?
5 years. No, it won't be me. I'll be on my desert home, hopefully. I think it's interesting asking you that because I think it's about and we are using AI. We're using it now while we're recording this. And you use it on your phone when you ask, I won't say the two names because I've already seen SIRI doing something on my phone because I must have said something that sounded like a name. I think we already use it, and I think it's about ensuring that if it benefits your process, and I find it very refreshing that you don't want to use ChatGPT. I use it for ideas. I use it just to go and fact find. I don't use it to write any of my posts because I naturally don't feel like I need to, but I find it very intriguing. And I'm just nosy. I think it's a great tool to have. Before I let you go, I want to just focus a little bit on TikTok because a lot of people are very reticent to get on there, and you're running our TikTok for the pod and for key recruitment. What would your top tip be for anyone listening who's going, I ain't going on that?
I think you're silly not to put it into words. I've met a lot of clients, candidates, even just Lysha's friends. They go, I don't know how to use that, and I've wanted to, but I don't know how to. And it's just like any other platform, but it's so much different. So you've got the younger generation that'll be your next hires. It'll be even younger actually. I think they need to step a line.
Generation Alpha,
I think
which
they need
is
to step a line of that age, but it's quite a toxic platform. However, if you use it correctly and you find the right content to post for your own benefit. So, for example, as a Rec2Rec recruiter, we're not going to post memes, but then memes do well. So you then find your balance. You need to do recruitment memes that benefit to get candidates for you. So I think we had someone comment, how do I get into this industry? Because they thought I did a day in the life video. So that's where you've got to kind of get onto TikTok, get on the For You page and scroll and see what you'd like to do for your business.
great advice. I haven't prepared you for this, but have you got anything you want to ask me?
No, but I was going to add one question to just chuck a
Okay.
spanner in the works about AI. For the audience and for you as well. Do you actually trust AI? Because I put this into my brain. Alexa's listening 24/7. So if you're putting, even for your business, you trusting an AI platform to do something for you, do you actually 100% trust it? Because I know I don't.
Oh my God. I've just had a massive surge of adrenaline going, no, I don't. I really don't. I've watched too many sci-fi films over the years. What are we doing? Because it's actually not now AI. It's not, well, it's not artificial intelligence. It's actually alien intelligence. If you listen to the experts, I'm not an expert, but if you listen and go and broaden I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you probably listen to loads of other ones. But if you go and listen to like your Hubermans, your Chris Williamsons, they have on real experts, even dare I say it, Stephen Bartlett. Go and listen to the experts in AI, and they will tell you that the AI has already progressed beyond artificial and it's now thinking for itself. So we've moved way beyond that. We can't reverse it now. That terrifies me. I'm glad I'm kind of,
Keep your data close.
Well, that's a really good point. And we've had loads of data people on this podcast. We talk about data quite a lot with our clients, don't we? And I think data will become an even bigger topic. Because your data should belong to you. And actually, if you are, like you say, putting it in the AI, then actually, where's that data going to go? Is it yours? Wow. How's your first podcast experience been?
It's been good. I don't know how to present myself. Like, do I face you? Do I face the camera?
No, I think we've done a good blend of it. I want you to feedback if you think this has been a really great way to do a podcast. We don't normally do in-person podcasts because I have podcasts from all around the world and it wouldn't be practical. But if you've got any advice for anyone who is thinking about either launching their own podcast or getting on a podcast as a guest, what would your advice be to them?
Do it. Podcasts are such a big thing these days. And I think you'd be silly not to.
Because you produce our podcast now, don't you?
Yeah, and clips are so easy. When I took over the process of editing clips and posting them, I was like, I cannot do that, but it is very easy once you've got the skills for it.
And it's not expensive to run. So if anybody's listening and you want to pick Lilia's brains, or Shannon, who's been running the podcast for the last 5 seasons, drop them a message because they're happy to share their data and intel with you. And I hope you've enjoyed this very cozy podcast. I feel like I'm some kind of chat show host, I really do. Thank you so much for joining us on the Recruiters Recruitment podcast.